I want to call it quits with my best friend because I'm exhausted of her drama. I have been best friends with Jay for 4 years now. She and I have been through a lot together. She was my first and only friend I made in college, and I am so grateful and I have so much love for her. Back in October, Jay made a new guy friend, which I thought was great because she was complaining that she wanted more friends since I had moved away from our college town to a different state, but then she told me her new guy friend, let's call him Stan, confessed he a huge crush on her. I advised her it wasn't a good idea to be friends with him and string him along because at that point in time Jay was in a 5-year relationship. She ended up not taking my advice and a month later confessed to me she likes Stan. I immediately told her to break up with her now ex-boyfriend, but she didn't because she didn't want to break his heart. Well, Jay ended up cheating on her now ex with Stan for 6 months before ending the relationship. During those months she told me everything and it didn't sit well with me at all. I felt guilty for knowing that my best friend was cheating and I said nothing. I also didn't feel comfortable being friends with someone who was a cheater because of past romantic relationships. I was really considering dropping her as a friend. She also knew what she was doing was wrong and would constantly rant to me about how she couldn't break up with him because she was too good of a person to break someone's heart, and how she also didn't want to let him go because the idea of her now ex with someone else infuriated her. I was tired of hearing her rant like she was the victim, like it was everyone else's fault for putting her in this position to go against her morals. Eventually I stopped talking to her for a month because I simply didn't want her or the type of person she was turning into in my life. Jay did break up with the poor guy eventually and got together with Stan. We reconnected and I told her I wasn't interested in the person she was in those months, that I wanted my old best friend back. Everything is somewhat back to normal now. I finally met Stan in person at a 4th of July barbecue I had invited Jay to at my parents' home. From the moment I met him I knew I didn't like Stan. He's controlling and a not-so-funny sarcastic guy. An example, we were sitting around the bonfire chatting and joking around and I told Jay that it would be funny if she tired to pick up a chicken. My parents have a hobby farm, and so she went and tried. Stan made a comment, Jay, I don't like that. Don't do that. I turned and kinda snapped at him, dude, she's not going to get hurt, plus the chicken runs much faster than she can. Jay talked to him about it later that evening on how it embarrassed her that Stan made that comment and how it was controlling and unnecessary, and then came back to inform me that she was spending the night and Stan was going home without her. Jay explained that Stan had only said those things because of how her chasing a chicken would reflect on him poorly and embarrass him because he is her boyfriend. The next morning Stan picked Jay up. My hungover older sisters, my mom, and I were reflecting on the night before, and my oldest sister mentioned that she got really weird vibes from Stan and she wasn't a fan of hanging around him. Jay texted me later that night on what I thought of Stan and I told her honestly that I didn't like him and neither did my sisters. After that the only communication we had was sending a daily Snapchat picture to keep our streak going. This past week she has been reaching out to me for advice because of some drama with her mom. She's called me twice while I was at work and I instantly felt annoyed by her call. After I didn't answer she texted me and said, "Call me right now." That text annoyed me even more. I feel as if she's only reaching out because she needs or wants me now. I also feel like I'm not being a very good friend either by not being there for her. I do want to be there for her, but at the same time it is exhausting and feels draining. Has anyone else been through a friend breakup before? If so, how did you approach it? Next story 2. Coworker is making me miserable with her constant complaining and gossiping. I won't go into detail about where I work for multiple reasons, but I, mid-20s, have 2 coworkers A and B who are most important here. A, mid to late 50s, and B, mid-20s, have a tense relationship, to put it lightly. I'm friendly with all of my coworkers and I like them enough to consider them to be my friends because we see each other outside of work. After working with them for a few years, everyone's close enough with each other that we can open up and vent whenever we need to. While I want my coworkers to speak their minds and not let things bubble up inside, this has caused multiple issues between me and coworkers A and B. I've worked with coworker A since I first got the job a couple years ago. B came along a few months afterwards and we clicked. A and I got along well and we'd have personal conversations frequently. However, A's venting quickly turned into gossiping and general complaining soon after. A has a complicated relationship at home with her husband and their special needs niece, 30s, who lives with them. A doesn't like this niece because the two argue frequently and she thinks niece is out to get her. At first she would talk about how she feels trapped in her home, but it quickly became her calling her niece a bitch among other things and always threatening to leave her husband because he acknowledges his niece's disability and apparently plays sides. She comes into work pissed off at every little thing her family does and focuses on it for the entire 8-hour shift, which ruins the mood for everyone. A apparently goes to family counseling and claims the counselor says her husband and niece are narcissists and that she's done no wrong to them. I'm not a psychologist in the slightest, but I can't help but think she has her own narcissistic tendencies as well. She gloats about herself often and acts like she can do no wrong. If she's not the one in the spotlight trashing her family, she turns everyone's conversations back to her and how her family wronged her that day. If she's not complaining to me privately about her family, she's complaining about B. A, as I mentioned, A doesn't like B at all. She comes to me to complain about every little thing B does, calling her lazy, spiteful, manipulative, etc. A frequently goes to our manager and tattles like a child about B if she does something A doesn't like. Recently, A was complaining to a trainee and telling her flat-out lies about coworker B and telling her not to trust B. She was claiming that to make herself look productive, B would do this process in our line of work that makes it look like we're doing more work than what we actually are on our record for the day. It's hard for me to explain. I'm sorry. I know this is a lie because we can see our records and we go over them before the end of the day each day. This fabrication that A mentions has literally never happened with B. It'd be visible on our record because I've seen another employee do it before and soon after they were let go. The fact that she's now trying to poison the mind of a new employee, who is not only younger, but still impressionable and unfamiliar with everyone, to make her automatically dislike coworker B, was the last straw for me. Since B came along, A has tried to get everyone to not like her by spreading gossip. I've brought it up with my manager multiple times, saying she's creating a toxic work environment and her being so miserable 24/7 has been affecting my mood/performance on the job. My manager says he understands and has witnessed it on some occasions and said he'd bring his boss into it if it gets worse. I think my boss has said something to her because A seems to be avoiding me and has been curt recently. This is probably going to bite me in the ass because our work environment is very small, so I'm forced to interact with her whether I want to or not. I feel like I should have bitten the bullet and expressed myself to A, and I should have told her her constant complaining and gossiping is affecting me negatively. But at the same time, I shouldn't have anything to do with what's going on between A and B, so I didn't want to get directly involved. I'm not sure what I should have done because I want to have a good relationship with A and B. Question: how can I maintain an amicable relationship with this coworker and remain friends with her when she's talking about my other friend? Next story 3. My GF and I just broke up because of her seasonal depression. Any advice to help her so we can get back together? So my GF and I split up 2 nights ago. We were only together for 3 months. Early into the relationship, she opened up to me about how she struggles really bad with her seasonal depression. She mentioned it gets really bad when school starts up. She also said that she didn't know if she would be able to manage a relationship when going back to school. But I told her I was open to helping her and supporting her as much as I could. So in the back of my head I knew we needed to discuss this again before summer ended. On Friday she said we needed to talk and she wanted to meet in a parking lot. So I kind of knew this was going to be a breakup conversation. She basically said it was too much for her to handle a relationship right now. She opened up to me about how she's already struggling with her mental health, and it's only going to get worse as school starts. I could tell how badly she wants to stay with me. I asked her if she'd considered taking a break for a while and see how bad her seasonal depression is. She said she didn't want to call it a break because she doesn't want me getting my hopes up that we will get back together. But she said we can stay very close friends and she will be open to me about how she's feeling. So if her mental health improves a lot, maybe we can get back together, and if it doesn't then we're done for good. I really don't want this to be the end of our story. I want what's best for her, so though the breakup upsets me, I know it's the right decision. I just want to know how I can help her fight the seasonal depression. She inherited it from her dad who also struggles. She is on medication, but that doesn't have a profound effect. Please let me know if you have suggestions on how I can help her. Comment. I'm not sure seasonal depression happens because school is starting back in the dead of summer. I'm sorry, but it sounds like she was trying to let you down the easiest way possible and you need to respect that without trying to win her back. To be frank, she doesn't sound interested. She said she didn't want to get your hopes up, which to me says she's not thinking about you getting back together as likely. I'd suggest taking some time for perspective and getting back into the dating pool. 100% this frankly seems like she's just not interested and wanted to blame depression on it instead of having an adult mature conversation. No. Just don't. Never a good idea to go back to an ex.